We have breaking news in the NHL tonight. Jason Spezza has been suspended for 6 games for a kneeing incident against the Winnipeg Jets. We also have a couple of NHL waiver claims, the latest rumors revolving around the Vancouver Canucks, and who they might be bringing in as their next GM and president of hockey ops. We'll discuss all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about here today. Let's kick things off with the breaking news from the NHL Player Safety Department this evening. Maple Leafs forward and center iceman Jason Spezza has been suspended for 6 games for a kneeing incident against Jets defenseman Neil Pionk in a game that took place just a couple nights ago against the Winnipeg Jets. It was a game that certainly got out of hand. I know a lot of people were very critical of the officiating for a lot of things that weren't called, and obviously a lot of things, kind of escalated. Again, really became a game of several incidents. Pionk himself was actually suspended as well for a couple of games for a kneeing incident against Leafs defenseman Rasmus Sandin, and of course, this is basically a revenge tactic of Spezza on Pionk, which is certainly part of the player safety decision here. So player safety is basically outlined the fact that Jason Spezza has no prior history. He's never been fined or suspended in his NHL career, which has spanned over 1,200 NHL games. However, a couple of things with this hit. If you haven't seen it, I will link the player safety video down below so you can listen to the explanation. So a couple of things. Pionk is on his way down to the ice. He's got no stick. He had lost the stick earlier in the play. He goes to swat the puck to try to get it out with his hand, and in the process, Spezza is skating in. He leads with his knee and connects with Pionk right in the head. Now, apparently, the Leafs and Spezza's argument, they were trying to say this was not a case of kneeing, which clearly is, I'm not sure why they made that argument. To me, that's a very weak argument. It clearly is kneeing to the head. If you watch it, especially in a slow motion reel, like it's clearly knee connecting with head 100%. I mean, doesn't mean he absolutely intended to get him in the head with his knee, but I think it's pretty clear to say, based on the fact that Spezza lowers himself down as Pionk is going down as well, he 100% was trying to check him, and I think he had to know that with the angle he was taking, that it was a very dangerous play. I have absolutely no issue with Jason Spezza being suspended here. I am a little bit surprised, though, given the fact that he has absolutely no history over such a long NHL career, that it was this harsh, that 6 games is the amount that he ends up receiving here. I mean, you have to think, if he's a player with history, if this is like a Brad Marchand or a Tom Wilson or somebody with a rap sheet, that it would have been significantly worse. We're probably talking 10 or 12 games or something significant of that nature. But I guess, I do understand here, because the part of the issue is they say the player has to take responsibility for his actions. They also look at the fact that Pionk was injured. He has suffered a concussion as a result of the hit, so that plays a role in the outcome as well. And they can clearly state it as well that another big issue is that they have to look at what else has transpired and happened in this game. And clearly this was a case of getting revenge for a teammate that was hit. Spezza acknowledged that he was well aware who it was that he was hitting at the time this incident took place, and that certainly plays a role. So he knew it was Pionk. Pionk had injured one of his teammates earlier in the game. He certainly had an option to avoid this, and he did not. It's a very dangerous play. Unlike Spezza, he certainly lost his cool. I understand he wants to defend his team and his teammates, and I have absolutely no issues with that. In fact, I applaud him for it, but this is crossing the line, and it certainly does deserve a suspension. But like I said, given the fact that he has zero history with the player safety department in the past, I am a little bit surprised that there was so many games. But once we knew that he was offered an in-person hearing via Zoom, they never do that, and it ends up being less than the 6 games, because obviously they can only go up to 5 without doing the in-person hearing. Obviously, you know that it's going to be more than 5 if they offer the in-person, and it certainly was not a surprise in the least based on that. But like I said, when I heard that he had an in-person hearing, I was a little bit surprised. I thought maybe it might be a 2 or 3 game type of deal, but certainly not good news for the Leafs, who are already without some other players here. So That's a big blow for them, but Spezza will get 6 games here in this scenario. Now, on to some injury updates. We might as well stay with the Leafs here for a moment. Mitch Marner is going to be out for an extended time, longer than they thought. Of course, we know that there was a collision and incident between him and Jake Muzzin in practice the other day. At first, it was led to believe he might miss a game or two, but now it looks like after further evaluation and probably further testing, that it's going to be longer than expected, and he's probably going to be out somewhere around a month. Now, he's already been out for close to a week now. I think it's probably been 4 or 5 days or whatever it's been. I can't remember the exact day this happened in practice, but it wasn't that long ago. So it's going to be a substantial time here. Obviously, considering the role Marner plays, the Leafs are still obviously playing well. I know as I record this video tonight, they were leading the Jackets. They have plenty of other offensive weapons, but certainly not a good scenario for them here with Marner being out for an extended time. One piece of good news on the injury front is the Panthers, obviously one of the league's top teams, getting back captain Alexander Barkov. Tonight he's been out for a while, so they get him back, which just makes them that much more of a deeper, even scarier team when he's playing. Certainly the last little while since they had a hot start, things have cooled a little bit, but getting Barkov back should get them another boost here again. And I would imagine that they're going to continue to be one of the NHL's top teams moving forward. As I mentioned as well, we also have some news and some players changing teams as a result of the NHL waiver process. We had 2 players placed on waivers yesterday, and they were both claimed. The Jets have placed center iceman Riley Nash on waivers, and he was claimed by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Of course, we know the Lightning have a variety of injuries, including some top guys like Kucherov and Point. So obviously having Nash around is going to be good for their bottom 6. He can certainly play a checking role, lots of experience, and somebody good to have around when they eventually make the playoffs, which I fully suspect the Lightning will be, involved in that process here yet again. And of course, the other player was Kevin Connaughton, who was with the Florida Panthers. Like I said, basically, he lost his spot as a result of getting Forsland back, and then on top of that, between him and Lucas Carlson had outplayed him, so Connaughton goes on waivers, and he was claimed by the Philadelphia Flyers. And I don't really know how much he can help the Flyers. I think their blue line certainly needs work. A lot of that's because of Ryan Ellis being out injured. That's certainly playing a big part of it, but I'm not sure that Connaughton's going to help a ton, but he is a decent depth defenseman. But if he's any higher than like a number 7 on your team, then you probably don't have that great of a blue line, or it might be weaker than you would like. So no offense to Connaughton, but to me, he'll get playing time in Philly, but they certainly have their fair share of issues. We saw them go through a coaching change, and I think it's going to take a little bit more than that to get things back on track. Now, we also had word that NHL veteran Devin Dubnyk has signed an AHL tryout agreement with the Charlotte Checkers of the American Hockey League. So you might be wondering why he's doing that, and clearly it's because of a lack of NHL opportunity. But as the season goes on, you'd have to think that there's a good chance maybe he could get some games in down there and get some attention. So it couldn't hurt. Of course, the Charlotte Checkers is the American Hockey League affiliate for the Florida Panthers, who they do share that to some degree as well with the new Seattle Kraken. So we'll see where this goes. He can get a chance to play in a few games. He could either get a 2A contract with an NHL club and have to go through waivers, or he could get an AHL only deal for the time being and then possibly sign an NHL contract later on. But for right now, Devin Dubnyk certainly going to start in the AHL and see if he can get another job and get his career back on track here. Now, when it comes to the NHL going to the Olympics, there's certainly further and further, speculation about the possibility that it may not happen as the COVID cases are not slowing down. There's lots of concerns over what could happen to some of these players when they're over in China and Beijing here. One player's already announced that he's not going if he's invited to go, and that's Robin Lehner, who's made it publicly known that if Team Sweden wanted him to be on their roster to go to the Olympics, that he would politely decline. He said that due to the fact of the stringent protocols that they're going to have to work through, he just doesn't think that would be good for his mental health. Obviously, he's been very open about the fact that it's something he's struggled with for a long time and doesn't really want to put himself in a situation where he's going to have any, major issues in that regard. So he's made it known that he's not going. He's to become part of the issue is the idea of testing positive and have to quarantine over in China by yourself for 3 weeks is not a great thought, great feeling. So certainly not appealing to him. There's also some word that Jack Eichel might actually be available to go to the Olympics to be part of Team USA. He's obviously been skating and training. He's set to resume the Golden Knights here soon. It's probably going to be a little while before he can actually practice with the team, but still, he's far enough along that he could theoretically be available for Team USA if they want to give him the opportunity to be on that Olympic roster. So another big name to watch out for. If he's able to play in Beijing for Team USA, that could certainly be a huge boost in being one of their top center icemen. I know at the beginning of the year, not factoring in the injury, we probably would have penciled him in as likely being their number 2 center behind Austin Matthews. So obviously whether or not he can play and be effective would be a big boost for that team, but we'll see where things go. The Golden Knights might not be real crazy about the fact of him playing his first hockey games in Beijing instead of on NHL ice after that surgery and recovery in the big trade that they obviously paid to bring him to their organization. So we'll have to watch that situation further, but things are progressing well, and his Olympic dream is not completely out of the question at this point. Now, the other big rumor today that came from TSN's Insider Trading is the potential names being looked at here for the Vancouver Canucks for president of hockey ops as well as their general manager vacancies. Now, at this point, it is possible that there could see more personnel already within the Canucks organization take on bigger roles. Like, for example, could the Sedin twins be co-presidents or could they be co-GMs? I certainly would not rule that out. It's a strong possibility. Regardless of what happens, their role certainly going to be elevated. But according to Darren Dreger at TSN, Lawrence Gilman, who's currently an assistant GM with the Maple Leafs, his stock is rising. He's getting a lot of attention. It's not just in Vancouver, but in other teams that have openings like the Blackhawks as well. Apparently, it's somebody that they certainly want to speak to. And they talked about the possibility of Gilman and Mike Gillis returning to the Vancouver Canucks to be president and general manager. Of course, both those guys have ties previously to the organization from the past. Could they both make a return, but both have an elevated role than previously? I mean, Mike Gillis, of course, could be a president. He's currently working for the NHLPA. Certainly some familiarity, but Pierre LeBrun did talk about the fact on Insider Trading that there is some talk about them getting the band back together, so to speak, and bringing back some former familiar faces. And then Dreger mentioned the fact that, Gilman's not only getting attention from Vancouver, but other teams as well. And certainly, in line to likely be an NHL GM sometime in the near future. If it's not Vancouver, then somewhere else. But certainly you have to think based on the comments from Francesco Aquilini in the press conference after Green and Benning were fired and they introduced Bruce Boudreau as the new head coach. Based on what he was saying, it wouldn't be a complete shocker if that's the road they went down. It's getting more tougher and tougher for GMs to have the role that they do and take on a lot of the responsibilities that president of hockey ops normally would have as well, and only having one on the job, especially in the Canadian markets where there's a high demand for media availability as well. It only makes sense to go more with the two-headed monster approach and have them work in collaboration with each other to hopefully make the franchise even better. Of course, it's more costly for the team to do that, but it makes sense and makes them more productive and hopefully a better team and better well-run organization overall. So let me know your thoughts on the Spezza suspension, the waiver claims, as well as the rumored returns to Vancouver in a potential president and GM roles. Let me know your thoughts on everything discussed down below in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.